Alright guys, and welcome back to another video. As promised, today I'm going to be going over the tips and tricks I used to drop water weight from your last powerlifting competition, or your first powerlifting competition I did. I just thought I'd make this video because before doing this type of weight loss, I've never actually done anything like it before in my life. I've obviously cut weight for bodybuilding competitions, but that's a lot different to what I've done for this one. So I managed to drop around 5 kilos in about 3 or 4 days using these techniques I'm about to show you now. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to split this up into 5 different sections. I'm going to split it up into water manipulation, sodium manipulation, glycogen manipulation, and food manipulation. And I'll explain each one of them and show you how I went about it. So we'll start off with water manipulation. So you're probably thinking, what is water manipulation, or as most people call it, water loading? And what it basically does is it allows you to dehydrate your body, but in a natural way. So the way this works is about a week out from the weigh-in or the competition, you're going to increase your water intake by about 2 to 3 times the normal amount. And what this will do is it'll make your body expel all this extra water at a higher amount, basically meaning that you'll go to the toilet a lot more than you normally would. So there's also a delay on how fast your body recognizes that you've stopped intaking this extra water. So in simple terms, your body will still be getting rid of all this extra water that you're now not intaking when you start depleting your water. So instead of just getting rid of the extra water, it's now going to be getting rid of your actual stored water, which means that you're going to drop water weight. So to make this a little bit easier, this table that's going to be on screen now will show you the measurements of water I took to get this effect. Now, as you can see, on an average day, I was intaking about 2 to 3 litres of water every single day. Now, to begin the loading process, I then increased that to 8 litres of water for 2 days. This then meant that I was going to the toilet a lot more because my body was expelling all this extra water that I wasn't used to taking. Now, on days 2 and days 3, I then halved the amount of water I was intaking and halved it again. Now, due to the fact that your body takes a while to realise this has happened, I was still expelling the same amount of water as I was on day 5 and day 4, but intaking half the amount I was on them days. So this means that instead of expelling excess water, I'm now expelling stored water sources and therefore water weight. Now, this process was still happening on day 1, but as you can see, on the final day, I was intaking as little water as physically possible, and this amount of water was literally enough to get us through my day, and that was it. Now, although I wasn't going to the toilet as much as I was on, say, day 4, I was still going a fair bit, but you've got to realise that I was putting nothing in, so everything that was coming out was pure water weight. Now, post-weigh-in, you want to make sure you're getting as much water as physically possible, but also keeping in mind not to overdo it. Now, the reason behind this is you don't want to be bloated and you don't want to feel sick on the platform, otherwise you could possibly mess up your lifts. So I recommend taking in about 1 to 2 litres straight away post weigh-in, which be a mixture of coconut water, which is really good for rehydration, electrolyte drinks like Gatorade, Lucozade, H2O, and stuff like Diarrhea, which is something that you can get from most of your stores like Asda, Tesco, Sainsbury's. And what it basically does is it gets all your nutrients and minerals straight back into the body after being dehydrated. Now, these things helped me a lot, and by the time I got to my lifting, I felt like I was on form again, even though I'd done serious dehydration. Right, now moving on to the next subject, we've got sodium manipulation. Now, this actually goes hand in hand with water manipulation and water loading, and works exactly the same. Now, the way this works, like I said, is almost identical to the water manipulation. So about 5 days out from your weigh-in, you want to be adding sodium to everything, loading up as much as you can. 2 days after that, you want to deplete sodium. Now, because sodium is such a key component when it comes to your hydration levels and your retention of water, when you load the sodium and drop it back down, like the water, your body has this buffering effect where it takes a while to realise that you've stopped intaking X amount of sodium. So it starts depleting extra sodium and therefore depleting extra water, meaning you're dropping that water weight. So, taking a look at the table that's on the screen now, your normal intake, or my normal intake, was about 1 to 2 grams of sodium a day. Now, tracking sodium is a bit harder than tracking water, so I used the likes of MyFitnessPal and stuff like that to try and work out where my sodium was at and what to do with it. So, days 4 and days 3, like your water, you're going to load sodium, and although it says 5 grams on here, the way I did it was I basically added salt to everything. I had high sodium foods, just basically loaded the salt on everything, and although it wasn't really nice, it's just what you have to do. Now on days 2 and day 1, you go from having 1 gram, which is basically as little sodium on stuff as possible, to trace amounts, and I'm talking like literally don't put salt in anything, and you're probably only just going to get it from what's already in the food that you're eating. Now, post-weigh-in, what you want to do is you want to be eating salty snacks and basically getting as much sodium in you as possible. Now, the reason behind this is because, like I said in the water manipulation part, you're going to be intaking a lot of water. Now, without sodium, you're not going to be holding that water. So, if you're not intaking the sodium, the water loading is going to be basically useless. So you want to be having basically salt in all your meals, salty snacks like pretzels and stuff like that, and you just want to be increasing your sodium to as high amount as possible so that you're retaining the water, you're not going to get cramps, and you're going to feel a lot better when you get to the platform. Now the third aspect of water cutting I'm going to look at is glycogen manipulation. Now it's quite easy to do in terms of just increasing and decreasing carbs to drop glycogen. However, it is a lot more costly than the other two, which I'll explain in a bit. Now, the reason why glycogen manipulation is really good is apparently around about for every gram of glycogen you hold, you require about 3 or 4 grams of water to hold that glycogen. So that means that every gram of glycogen that you drop, you're also dropping about 3 or 4 grams of water. Now, the reason why this is also something that you should not bank on is because glycogen is very much hand in hand with muscle performance. So if you drop glycogen and you've only got like, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours between weighing and lift off, you're not going to resynthesize that glycogen in enough time. It's basically biologically impossible. It takes a while to resynthesize glycogen, and because of that you don't really want to bank on depleting it to drop the water just to get a weigh-in to possibly lose all your performance on the day. Now, taking a look at the table that's on the screen now, you can see the numbers that I was working with for my glycogen depletion. Bearing in mind, this is only partial glycogen depletion for the simple fact that if I try to deplete maximum amount of glycogen for to make weight, the chances are I wouldn't be able to replenish nearly any of it in time, and I probably would have bombed all my lifts. So, now as you can see, my normal carb intake was about 400 grams a day, and on my high day, which was 5 days out, I increased this up to 550 grams. Now this was also the best day to test my openers due to the fact that I was full of energy, I was in a very good calorie surplus, and I was basically feeling the best for that type of training. Now 4 days out, I dropped that back down to my normal carb intake, which was once again 400 grams. 3 days out, I cut that in half to 200 grams. 2 days out, cut that in half again to 100 grams. And then 1 day out, all I had was trace carbs. Now, something to take into account is obviously on days 5 and 4 and even day 3, if you're weighing yourself, you are going to weigh heavy because obviously you've ate extra food. However, don't really let it dishearten you or put you off, because that weight will come off by the time you get to day 1, as I experienced myself. Also, post weigh-in, you want to make sure that you're getting in as many fast-acting carbs as physically possible. So I'm talking high sugars, like high glycogen foods, high glycogen energy drinks, stuff like that. And it's for the simple fact that you want to get in as much glycogen as physically possible. Although you can't resynthesize much, you want to try and get the most out of it, because if you don't, you're going to feel very, very crap when you start lifting, and you could possibly mess up your lifts altogether, due to the fact that you're not going to have glycogen stored in your muscles, you're not going to have that water in, and you're not going to have that strength there that you previously had prior to glycogen cutting. Now the next section I'm going to go over is actually totally unrelated to water cutting, and it is actually just weight cutting in general, and that is food manipulation. Now the way you'd go about doing this is converting from solid foods to a liquid diet and taking such things as natural laxatives to basically help flush out your system. Now the way this works is you're actually clearing out your digestive system in your stomach, and therefore getting rid of the weight that was put there by the foods you're eating. So taking a look at the table that's on the screen now, everything is exactly the same as you would normally be day to day, all the way up into 4 days out and 3 days out, where you'll make your last meals of the day liquid meals. Now this can either be blended meals or protein shakes with stuff blended in them, which is personally what I did. 2 days out you're going to make your last 2 meals liquid meals, and 1 day out everything is going to be liquid meals. Bearing in mind, if you've done glycogen depletion, you also want to keep in account that you're not putting any carbs into your shakes to make sure that your glycogen is going to be depleting as well. Now on 2 days out you also want to take a diuretic on the night, which can either be dandelion extract, which is what I'd recommend, or some of the ones that are not banned by the federation that you're competing in, as well as a laxative. Now this is going to make sure that everything is getting flushed out your system and you're dropping as much weight through food as physically possible. Now on 1 day out you also want to be taking a diuretic and vitamin C every 2 hours or so, up to the maximum dosage. This is to make sure that you're getting everything out your system in terms of water. Now when you get to competition day and post weigh-in, you want to go back to normal foods, because obviously at that point it doesn't matter. So you want to go back to solid foods, and obviously take into account all the other stuff I've mentioned in the previous topics, like high sodium, high glycogen, high sugars, fast acting carbs, and all that stuff. So the fifth and final thing I'm going to go over in this video is final precautions you can take. So I'm only going to mention stuff I've personally tried, just because I haven't really got enough knowledge on the other things to sort of bring them up. But I will link in the description the articles I've read. So if you do need any extra information on these, they'll be in the link in the description. Now the first thing is hot baths. Now the night before the comp, sitting in the bath for a couple hours helps sweat out some extra water. As well as this, you can do spit cups, which is what I personally did on the day of the comp, which is basically just carrying around a cup with you and spitting any saliva you get in your mouth into the cup to drop weight. And although it sounds very stupid, I actually dropped ½ a kilo off just doing that. And if your mouth is very dry and you can't get any saliva going, chewing gum and sour sweets, as long as you don't swallow them, are very helpful as well to get the saliva going to spit into the cup. And the only last thing I did was, because I was overweight still, was actually sweating it out on the bike before weigh-ins. So basically just putting loads of layers on in a plastic bag under my clothes and just pedaling for an hour to sweat out as much as I physically could. And that's actually what got the last bit of weight off for us. Now if you don't need to do that, definitely don't do it, because I felt like absolute shit afterwards. So I'd recommend you just do the simple things, but obviously if you have to do it, you're going to have to do it. It's as simple as that. Now looking at the table that's on the screen now is just a roundup of everything I've spoke about in this video. Something I didn't mention was high caffeine drinks the day before, such as like black coffees and stuff like that. They also work as a diuretic, so you can get a lot of water out and stuff by drinking them. And obviously, like I said, laxative before bed 2 days before, and water pills 2 days before. So dandelion extract and stuff like that. That'll help you get the water out. You can screenshot this if you need it, and I hope this has helped. If there's any topics you want us to talk about in future videos as well, put them in the comments and I'll see if I can do videos on them. But if you like the content, give it a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.